not gonna say it, somebody should. Let's talk about two-time. Let's talk about bum one, yeah. Asking the questions that nobody could. Like, where are the bone thugs and are they in harmony?
Is it weird?
You're a helpful snowman.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And then I think the last time I did not get a ride from my mom to the airport that I can really recall was, I recall more distinctly was the time when she got COVID.
Oh, yeah. One of the many times you didn't get COVID.
Right.
That you should have, but somehow didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Zeta-Jones in the laser maze.
Exactly.
The way around COVID somehow.
Me getting my shapely booty underneath COVID yet again.
One of the most memorable moments of cinema, and it's from a movie I've never seen.
I don't feel like I even really know what it's about. Like, it's about
a
like
bank heist?
Like, I think it's like
heist?
jewel thieves. And they're they're stuck in something because, like, it's called entrapment.
Yeah, I guess so. And I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I suppose they're entrapped.
What I heard the other day, though, or I heard a while ago, stunt butt.
That's not her butt?
No. The stunt performer.
Well, I want to know whose butt that is.
That
I've been living in my mind for the past, 3 decades.
There's something about the idea of, like, this is a butt you remember, and you're like, oh, it's Catherine Zeta-Jones, the only thing I remember, and it's like, well, not even really her.
I know.
Stunt person.
Like learning everything you ever know was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
When me and Alec went to go see Machete, which we walked out of because it sucked. And we were walking out, and I was like, well, at least we saw Lindsay Lohan's boobs. And he was like, dude, that wasn't her boobs. That was stunt boobs. And I was like, no. And he was like, yeah, it didn't show her face and boobs at the same time. And I was like, oh my God, he's probably right. And I was like, this was a complete waste.
It's the kind of thing of, like, does it make it, you always want to ask, like, does it make a difference if it's, Lindsay Lohan's boobs versus just regular boobs? But I guess if that's the only redeeming thing of the film, you're like,
Well, okay, when you're having, I feel a selling point of the movie was specific boobs. And when it's not those specific boobs, it's that lady who sued because someone was in the movie trailer and then ended up not being in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I could have done that if I had had that idea at that time. Been like, this was advertised to me as having a specific set of boobs that were not in it.
This is why people need to just look up Mr. Skin before they go to the movies. It's like a content warning.
Yeah, I guess so.
Content warning, not actually the boobs, butts, penis, whatever that you think it is. That's the thing. As I wonder how many times, like, if you see a dude's dong, there's like a stunt dong in there.
I bet always.
Yeah.
I bet almost always, unless the actor is like a maniac who just doesn't care.
Like, there's one movie that Jen was having me watch the end scene of where a guy's just dancing around naked.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely see, like, it's going to be his dong because it's like, it's him the whole time.
Right.
It's not like smash cutting away. If it's cutting away, it's doing it very, like, carefully.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it's definitely his penis.
I think it's like, well, this is my opinion. I could be very wrong about this, but I guess I feel like probably in 2025, a guy showing his dick in a movie is a little bit less. I think that's something you're more likely to see in 2025 in a movie than seeing a pair of boobs or vagina.
Yeah, I think that you'll still get a hard R rating, but you can still do it, as opposed to like you're just never going to see that.
I think because a dick is either going to be in a movie where it's a joke, or it's going to be an artsy fartsy movie that doesn't care about getting an R rating. Because you're like, I mean, who gives a shit? Like, no, like, is anyone not going to see Oppenheimer because it's rated R? You know what I mean? Like, it's not really.
kids are going to sneak into the movie to see a dude's dick.
Yeah, like I'm not really planning to make money on this movie by 12-year-olds going to it. Like, who gives a shit?
It's not like Deadpool, where it's basically trying to make all of its money by 14-year-olds sneaking into it.
Right, yeah. Which is like, I want to make a movie, and it'll be bad, but then I'll shelve it. And, it'll have a PG-13 rating so that I can quickly deploy it when something like a Deadpool comes out, so that people will buy tickets to my shit movie and artificially inflate, the box office for it.
Right.
And then sneak into that movie.
Like, basically, you're trying to be the beard, the cover.
Yeah.
For something that kids want to see.
Well, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? It's like, I benefit financially from having an increased box office, and they benefit from kids seeing the movie, I guess. I probably benefit more than
you get a bunch of 14-year-olds who are like, 2 for the Bridges of Madison County 2.
Exactly.
Please.
Yeah. It's got to be something that's like completely ridiculous.
Legends of the Fall 2, Fall Harder.
Well, maybe that's what you do, though. You make a movie that ostensibly kids would go to. Because then that gives them some deniability. You know what I mean? If you're like, I made a...
You made Boss Baby 5.
Yeah. Well, no, because I want like something a 12-year-old would see. I don't know.
You want like a
Minecraft shit movie or something?
You want like some type of high school comedy, like some Disney Channel movie, I guess. Like whoever's current on the Disney Channel, and it's that movie.
Or maybe something, like they made the Battleship movie.
Oh.
And you could just have that. It's just some generic garbage shovelware of movies, but you make it specifically for this purpose.
You're making it, its working title is Contract Obligations, the movie.
Yeah. Awaiting the next rated R movie that people want to sneak into, the movie. Okay, before we go any further, is there any things you want to discuss not on the microphone before we talk?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Okay.
This is
like, we're driving to the airport, and hanging out, so I just wanted to make sure you weren't like, well, listen, I had to tell you about my life.
I got I got a lot of spicy opinions. All I'm saying is that there's some folks who just maybe needed to, aim a little bit to the left, but
I was talking to Poonmaster Flex because, we did our beer walk yesterday, which I am super fucking sore. No. I don't know what I did. I think I drank no water was the problem.
That is a huge factor. Like, I was fine today, but I think it was because I drank enough water.
I drank no water until the portion where I was walking from our mom's house to home, which is like the last mile of, I probably put in a total of 16.
And that feels like a thing that you learn, especially as you get older, is that you can't just like water yourself a whole bunch, really.
Yeah.
In a way that if you're hungry or like under-caloried, you can just eat a whole bunch.
Right.
And kind of catch up.
Yeah.
But like with water, like if you're dehydrated, it's just like, well, now I'm full, but I'm also still dehydrated.
Yeah, it's like those seasickness patches where they're like, if you're seasick, it's too late. Don't even bother. But yeah, you got to be proactive. I don't know what happened because like normally when I walk like solo, I'm very careful to like, I bring an amount of water and I'm like, okay, so if I go an hour, let's say, then I need to stop and drink some water. Or, like just to try and keep it up. Anyway, why did I bring that? Oh, because Poonmaster Flex was like, so what did you guys talk about? And I was like, I don't know, Warhammer and like
the defunct mall.
Yeah, the defunct mall and, just some other little stuff. She was like, that doesn't sound like, 7 hours of stuff. And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, well, did you ask him like how he's doing or whatever? And I was like,
emotionally?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I guess not. And like every time if I go hang out, with like Alec or something and we have beers and she's like, how is he doing? And she's like, he mentioned this life thing that he's going through. How's that? And I'm like, I
he did not mention that. Well, I get where maybe sometimes you just like want to get away from the life thing.
Yeah.
Or like, you kind of have a life thing, but maybe it just kind of needs to be settled on its own.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a difference in some personality, because like, it's not like if you or he or whatever brought up something like that, I'd be like, bro, we're not talking about that. But also I think I'm probably not the best at proactively asking those questions.
We got into life stuff like, how do I deal with what is a good way to navigate the relationships of like your spouse's friends' spouses?
Yeah, oh, that's true.
Or like where we have some folks in our lives who've lost people and kind of updating there.
Yeah.
So I think it was there.
That's what I said. I was like, I asked about some of that stuff. He brought up some stuff. I was like, I don't know, man. I think he's cool. She was like, how is he doing or whatever? And I was like, I don't know, fine. I think he's fine.
It's sort of like, yeah, probably about as, sometimes I have when people like ask me like how someone's doing.
Yeah.
I'm honest with you, my answer more and more has been like, I guess it's about as good as you can expect.
Right.
Like,
given their circumstances, they seem to be doing just fine.
Yeah, there's like emotionally they seem okay. Like sometimes I'll get a question of like, how are they doing? And I'm like, well, here's what they're planning or going through. It's like, but then emotionally, and I'm like, they seem emotionally like sad or scared or excited.
Yeah.
Or like I'll know the emotions they're feeling, but it's like, but what is their plan? And I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, right.
They're planning to like buy a house, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't ask them 100 questions about every aspect of whatever. I don't know. Does like friend of the show Wilma, your wife, like when you go home, is she like, how's Peter doing emotionally or whatever?
I think she asks at times like how something's going emotionally. Like, we're working through a large project on our mom's house.
Yeah.
And I think part of, the concerns in dealing with any large project at our mom's house, part of it is like, especially when I can't do it myself. Since it's putting in a fence and marking a property line, I'm like, I cannot fix it myself.
Right.
It's like we'll get these people out here to do it. We'll help pay for it. We're going to make it work.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I can manage all the logistics part, but then there becomes like the emotions part. And, friend of the show, Wilma, asked like how my mom was feeling. And it'd be like, well, I think she knows it's important, but I think has some hesitancy. I'm like, is that really a feeling?
Yeah, right. Is that an emotion?
Yeah.
Is it a feeling? Is it an instinct? What is it? Yeah. It's sort of like, how I feel about, I don't know, being hungry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it an emotion, but it's a feeling.
Like hungry and tired are those things that are like so influential on how you're feeling. You don't really feel anything else. Or like,
yeah.
If you say like, I feel angry, it's like, well, it's probably because I'm hungry.
Right.
Like the root, there's not like a root cause relationally. It's the relation between me and the food I haven't eaten.
Yes, true. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Like it's a sort of the catalyzer of many emotions. None of them good.
Yeah, there's not like you sort of like if you're that hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, you're like, how do you feel? And you say, well, I'm just tired.
Do you think like my life would be better? Okay, something I struggle with. So for Patreon subscribers, I realized like 2 days ago that I haven't sent any print newsletters this year. I was like, oh, fuck. I didn't do a thing that I'm supposed to do. So I started working on it, and I decided the topic that I've come up with for this year's monthly print newsletter is basically being a little bit more like happy. And so like one of the things is like, being more grateful about things. Do you think that I would be happy or one would be happier? Because like I was just thinking, I could name many times in my life where I was like, I am so fucking hungry, or where like I had a minor meltdown because I was hungry or whatever. But I don't think I've really spent maybe any time in my entire life like having just eaten, and then I sit back and I'm like, that was amazing. That was delicious. I feel the perfect amount of full. I'm very happy right now. Like, I don't think I ever do that.
Never?
I don't think so. I mean, I think very occasionally. I think when we were on vacation, I did it some, because I was like, I never understood ramen as a food because putting like top ramen and stuff aside, which I understand that would be like me saying, I never really understood spaghetti because I'd only had Chef Boyardee canned spaghetti, and then I went to Italy, and it turns out that shit's delicious.
Yeah, like you're like, wow, I understand why people make such a big deal out of this.
Yeah, but like I've had, like ramen from like a ramen place or like pho or all these things, and I've always been like, I don't really get it.
Okay.
And then on our vacation, I had a lot of really good ramen, and I was like, I get it now. Like, I get why people like this food. Because I guess I always thought of it as like, it's fucking soup. Like, who gives a shit?
Basically, you realized that it's good. Maybe the problem was you were not having the good versions of it.
I absolutely wasn't. Yeah, I think ramen for me was a food that I kind of thought like low floor, low ceiling, and like the difference between a great ramen and a mediocre ramen was nothing. And it turns out that that's not true. But anyway, so like a couple times, like I had that and I did like marvel at, I was like, that was so fucking good. And like, I get it now. I have an enthusiasm for a thing, a brief dying light that will just go out and snuff out and be gone. But, at this moment...
you understand why people like ramen now. Like, you don't have... That mystery solved for you.
I think I do. I'm not 100% sure because I've...
Maybe you don't know why, but you believe it's possible. You're like, I understand that someone can get to a place of liking ramen.
Yeah, I think the thing that still I'm unsure about is I'm like, but do people like the kind of ramen that I've had before? Or, do they like it that much, or do they just enjoy it that much? Or have they had super good ramen and that's why, you know what I mean? I don't know which one it is.
Like somehow you've only had like mediocre ramen.
Yeah, but I guess what I mean is like, I like ramen now that I've had like what I would call top tier ramen.
Sure.
And like, do other people like ramen though? Okay, pizza. I love pizza, as almost everyone does. Top tier pizza is usually great. But you know what? Pretty low tier pizza I also enjoy a lot.
One of the things that is underrated when I come to Greeley is that Blackjack Pizza is actually like pretty good. And to me, as far as like a cheap delivery pizza goes, and also like relatively affordable.
It's pretty cheap, yeah.
Which I think is a rare combo. Like I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty good, and then also it's not $1 million.
Right. Blackjack is probably a good example of what I'm talking about, where it's like, no one's gonna confuse that with like gourmet pizza, right? It's like your standard sort of like delivery place pizza. And that's totally fine. But so like if someone had never had pizza before and then came and was like, hey, I would be like, pizza's fucking great. And I might get Blackjack Pizza and then eat it with them and be like, isn't this great? And maybe that person would be like, I don't get what the big deal is.
I don't get what this is. Like, yeah. They're like, it's all right. Like, I get what this, but I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of it.
Yeah, like, why has this guy got such a boner for this? You know what I mean? Like, and that's how I've always felt about ramen, is just like, I mean, it's fine, but I'm like, is it better than a Campbell's can of soup? Sure. Is it 10 times better? No. Like, but now I'm like, okay, anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if I spent more time like after I ate being like, how do I feel right now? You know what I mean? Like, do I feel full and satisfied? And
it's whatever. The meal as an experience as opposed to I'm just trying to power my dumb body forward.
Yes, which is honestly 90% of my meals are that. Because, I eat them while I'm working because I'm like, well, then I practice the opposite of mindfulness. Mind emptiness.
Mindlessness.
Yeah, I guess that's probably it's like the already existing term. It's a lot better.
Where you're like not even aware of it at all. You're just like, I'm just doing it.
Yeah, because I'm like, well, then I can eat food that I made that's not that great. But, I can power it down. And I just am kind of distracted while I'm eating. It's like the opposite of the advice you give to someone who's trying to like diet, where you're like, don't do other things while you eat. You know what I mean? Think about what you're eating while you're eating it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll like try and watch something on YouTube and type something at the same time, because then I am so distracted from what I'm eating. It's like it didn't even happen.
That seems like the kind of thing you would do if you were trying to force down some food that you didn't really want to eat for nutritional purposes.
Yeah, like I think I could help, like World's Strongest Man competitors bulk up, because you watch those videos of them and everybody's like, oh, it must be really fun because you get to eat all this shit. But then they're like, the reality of it is like, well, here I am eating 4 pounds of plain chicken breast. Yeah.
4 pounds of plain chicken breast, brown rice, and then like unsalted, like steamed broccoli.
Yeah, unseasoned broccoli. And you're just like, I know that's not fun. You know what I mean? That cannot be fun. Or like, I watched a guy eat, like a 12-egg omelet. And he eats it every day for breakfast. And I was just like, that fucking sucks.
Now, wait a minute. Okay. For a second here, I want to say that maybe 2 weeks ago now, Jen and I went to see Alton Brown. Like he does a stage show.
Oh, okay.
And he's doing like a final tour. Oddly enough, he came to Greeley last Sunday.
The final tour, huh?
Yeah.
This is his last hurrah?
Yeah, that's what he called it, I think, was the last. He called it the last bite.
Oh, okay.
But I bring him up because on stage, he made like a 12-egg omelet.
Jesus.
And it was like on a big piece of like just cast iron, basically. Because he's not allowed to have like an open flame in the theater.
Oh, interesting.
And so they have to heat up this big thing of cast iron to, do the omelet as part of the stage show. So I feel like I have seen what a 12-egg rolled omelet with like cheese and green onions looks like.
Yeah.
And so when you said someone just made a 12-egg omelet, I'm like, all right, does he have like a slab to cook it on?
I think he just it looks like he just fucking puts the eggs in a pan, scrambles them up, and
okay, so it's not like a folded omelet. It's like he's kind of
he
just kind of has 12 scrambled eggs.
Yeah,
sort of.
I think being like a World's Strongest Man, like I think the eating is the worst part. That's my personal assumption. I mean, sometimes they'll say that because I think the training is hard. But I think in order to like get that deep into that kind of thing, you probably have to like it to some extent at least. But like, I think the eating, that's got to be because day in and day out, you have to do it. You know what I mean?
I guess if you're going day to day, I was going to say actually taking a shit would be the worst.
Like, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea, like, what happens to your digestive system when you eat like that. I have no concept of, does it adapt? What happens?
Then I watched a YouTube video of, like, there was, like, a World's Strongest Man, like, competition going on. And someone did, like, this sort of person on the street interviews, and they went to a kid. And the kid is like, man, it smells like farts here.
Oh.
Like just terrible, like farts.
I'm sure the farts are horrible because like...
just the egg white farts everywhere.
Well, and the proteins, powders and all that shit. The supplements, I think are, pretty known for heinous gas. I'm sure they have heinous gas. I'm sure they take heinous shits. I'm just not sure.
It's sort of like you take that much brown rice and steamed broccoli because it's like you need the fiber to like push things through.
Yeah, because, well, I'm wondering what % of World's Strongest Man shits are even remotely solid versus being like a more diarrheal consistency.
A liquidy combo of stuff.
Yeah.
A school bus
is backed out, blocking 2 lanes of traffic going 65 miles an hour. That is some crazy shit. Yeah, I gotta wonder. I'm not sure, Like, I could say for probably 6 months when I was trying to achieve a weightlifting goal, I was eating like a fucking maniac in order to make it happen. And I don't think it really affected the shits I was taking very much. Like, I didn't notice much of a
wasn't much of a poop impact.
No, it wasn't like...
Poop Impact is a great name for the kind of movie that you want to set next to Deadpool 2.
Poop Impact. Okay, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You make like a shitty CG animated thing that's like what's that movie? Like Sausage Party?
Yeah.
Kind of vibe, but it's PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Grown-ups don't want you to see Poop Impact.
Yeah, something like that. That would probably work. Because then it's like, hey, if you're 12 and you tell them you want to see Poop Impact, they're probably going to be like, ugh, whatever. And like coming there without your parents. Do you think...
Oh, okay.
Okay, when we were kids, we were like a lot more free range than kids are today.
Sure.
Something we would do is like go to the movies alone or be dropped off at the movies. And you'd see a movie with like your buddies and then get picked up at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think kids go to the movies without a parent anymore? Like, do you think that's a thing anymore?
I will say that they try to sneak into movies without their parents. But I don't think they go to movies without their parents very much.
But when you say sneak in, that's probably like 15, 16.
Yeah.
I'm talking like 12.
I would say I guess part of it is I don't go to very many movies in the theater that a 12-year-old would go to at a time that a 12-year-old would go. So I feel like that's one of those I don't know currently in 2025.
Yeah.
I can speak to maybe 6 or 7 years ago when I used to go to more like matinees and things during the day. And I guess I didn't see very many people.
Yeah.
So I would say it's not like a ton of people were going to the matinees in the first place.
I see.
And so I wouldn't say the kids were really going by themselves. So I'd say no, but it's not as if like anybody really was.
I gotcha. Yeah, I guess my movie going experience for the past like 15 years has mostly consisted of when I would work on the weekend, I'd go to the movies on Monday nights.
Mm-hmm.
The following Monday, and I would go and drink like 4 beers and then go see like whatever at 7 p.m. So like there's probably never going to be, even if kids are going to the movies alone, they're not going at 7 p.m. on a Monday alone, probably.
Probably not. I think the last 2 movies I saw in the theater were Baby Girl, which is like a sort of like a domination, submission, sexual thriller sort of thing.
Okay.
Which is not something that like a 12-year-old is going to try and see.
Right.
And The Substance.
Yeah,
which is closer to the thing a 12-year-old might try to see.
I don't think so.
But we also saw it at like one of the fancy movie theaters. It's like a restaurant,
Oh, yeah.
And you've got the recliner chairs, and shout out to that particular movie theater because they do give you like a giant ass bowl of popcorn.
Yeah.
And they'll bag it up for you to take home.
Oh, so you don't have to finish it?
No, they're like, yeah, we'll give you just this giant bag and they'll top off the giant bag that you're taking with you.
Remind me to come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But like something like The Substance is a movie that like if it came out when we were kids is something that like kids would probably watch on HBO or whatever for nudity purposes.
Sure.
But like that's probably gone, right? Like kids probably don't watch movies to get a glimpse of a boob anymore. Right?
I think the thing is that they have so much like internet pornography is so easily accessible to them on their phone.
Yeah, like you could just type in the word boobs and see boobs. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to.
There's also a thing where they're not going to watch a whole movie to see boobs, and that like they can also probably just go online like to a Reddit or a Mr. Skin, because I know all the kids are on the Mr. Skin app.
Yeah.
It really is a Mr. Skin app now that I think about it.
Probably.
But they'll go and they'll be able to be like, oh, this is what I want to see. I want to see this person's boobs at this time. Don't have to see the whole movie.
I don't even know, like, if celebrity nudity is like a thing with cachet for kids. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, for us, there was like let's say 3 tiers. There was actual pornography, which was pretty impossible to get your hands on. Like a porno tape,
right,
was impossible to get as like a 12-year-old. Then there was like a Playboy, which was possible to maybe have when you were like 12. But even then, it was like you would have like 2 Playboys that sustained you for the next 4 years, and then there was brief moments in movies of nudity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, those were like the 3 types of things that you could get. So it was like a little bit more cachet to that celebrity, because that tier at our time was like probably the most likely way that you were going to see boobs. But now that's not really a thing, right? Like that's the lowest likelihood tier.
It's the hardest to find, and now pornography is just everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna come back to movie theaters because, like, I've been to the movies one time since 2020. Well, since like right before we went to the movies, like the week before everything locked down, and we saw the Impractical Jokers movie, which was fine.
It's about what I would expect. Don't know that. You know what? That sounds like the kind of movie that I have a colleague actually who loves Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Like, he loves it. He's like, he thinks it's the funniest thing ever.
I find it very fun.
And I'm not going to say it's, well, I will say it this way, as like, I think it's fine. I don't think it's funny as he does, but I don't think I find much of anything as funny as he does.
Right.
Like, anymore. And that, like, I probably found like the early seasons of The Simpsons as funny as he finds Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
And I will say that I do not believe he will be watching these seasons of Impractical Jokers 10 years from now and still think they're funny. But anyway.
I know what you mean, where you're like, I wish I enjoyed anything as much as he enjoys this thing.
Right.
Okay, but like Impractical Jokers movie, perfectly serviceable. We got exactly what, we were expecting to get, and you have some laughs or whatever. The thing about seeing the Impractical Jokers movie when we did, and it coming out when it did, it was probably great for them in terms of like, it came out just in time so that they could at least get some box office, but it probably overall did horribly just because it,
oh, that's a big wreck.
Just because, it didn't probably have as much time as it should have.
Yeah, like kind of once everything shut down for the pandemic, it had a real short tail.
Yeah. But here's the thing about seeing it is like, it's a perfectly good movie. It was fun to see it. We laughed. There was like a, I don't know, quarter or third full theater because we were seeing it at a dumb time.
Right.
People were laughing. It was fun. But, it's probably not what I would have picked if someone had told me, like, this is the last time you're going to be in a movie theater for the next, like, 5 years. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm tallying my top theater going experiences, it's a little bit like, there's a good chance you will go to a concert someday and that will be your final concert. But that might not be a conscious decision. Like, it might not be when you go to that show that you're like, this is the last time I'm going to go see like a big band in a auditorium.
Right.
And so it's like, you don't know. So you don't get to make a choice about who your last band is necessarily. Because like, if I did have that option, I would probably see one of a couple acts. Anyway, it was kind of a funny movie to see under those circumstances. But I don't think I'm saying anything weird to say that probably pre-pandemic movie theaters weren't doing great. Probably one of the hardest hit things by pandemic in terms of like, I don't know, businesses.
Was movie theater.
Yeah. And then I feel like has probably been one of the slowest or least to recover. I wanted to ask what you think about that, and if you think they're ever Like, are movie theaters going to be gone in 20 years?
I think the answer is yes. Because I think a lot of movie theaters are really not willing to change.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people though, but I think the weird part is I think there's a demand for some like communal movie watching experiences. I think that there's one movie theater we used to live nearby. That was since we moved. A weird thing that they did that felt like it was actually smart was they had movies that were like on a pretty regular basis that were stuff that you would have missed on a big screen, but is on a big screen now. Like they would have, horror movies from the 90s or 2000s.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And kind of like you have no problem seeing this thing, but you never got to see this thing on a big screen. So
sure.
Like, we're going to have a thing where you're going to be able to pay like $10 and you can see this thing on a big screen.
Like, Final Destination or something like that.
Yeah. And it's kind of like it's not going to make the movie, it doesn't save the movie theater, but it kind of fills a lot of those like, what are you watching on a random Wednesday night at 7 p.m.? Like,
yeah.
Those kinds of things. And I do feel that I think some movie theaters that are going to stick around, like they lean into the like luxury experience of like, you get the combination of like being waited on in a way, like where people are going to come and give you like food and drinks in your recliner and, you're watching this movie.
Yeah, and see, I don't like that because like I don't like when the movie theater when there's like a waiter in the theater because like for me like I have a hard time being like swept away by a movie and like forgetting like when I was a kid I could do it and I would have that magical experience where you go in the movie theater and you watch a movie and then you come out and it's dark and you're sort of surprised because you're like, oh, I kind of forgot that like the world existed for an hour and a half. And like I don't think I'm capable of that as an adult because I like whenever I watch a movie there's always moments where I'm like, I wonder what it was like to shoot this scene, or I'm thinking about like something else completely. You know what I mean? I'm looking at the back of someone's head and being like, that's a fucked up haircut. Like, I wonder how that happened.
I think part of it with the luxury theater and what it does, right? Because I kind of get the like, you kind of lose the immersion of it at times.
Yeah.
But I honestly found that like with the right movie, it doesn't really matter. In that, like, when we went and saw The Substance, I was like, just so into what was going on, it didn't matter because it's one of those movies where it's like, you have to be like, not like you have to follow the plot a whole lot, like,
yeah,
but there's like always something going on in a good way.
Yeah, like I just can't do that. Like I don't feel that way. Let me say it like this. It's extremely rare for me to watch a movie and not feel like I could just turn it off and come back to it tomorrow.
But I think that part of where I was going with the idea of the luxury theater has made me reconsider, like, if I want to see something that's, 2.5 or 3 hours long in the theater.
Oh, okay.
Because there's been movies where I said, do you want to see, Jen asked, do you want to see this? And I'm like, oh, that's like 2.5 hours in the theater. No.
Fuck that, yeah.
Like, and it has to be like one of those absolutely not things, because I'm like, it's just going to be too long.
Yeah.
But in that kind of thing where I'm like, it's going to be hard for me to like be engrossed for 3 hours anyway.
Right.
I was like, okay, I might be able to do that. If I could like get I get some pretzel bites like an hour and a half into this movie.
Yep.
It'll just be like me being at home, but in some ways I could be more immersed because I'm not like getting up and like looking in the fridge and then figuring it out and then settling it all up and then the cat wants a snack and gotta get the cat a snack.
Well, I think that's kind of like the weird push-pull of it in my mind because it's like I think the advantage of seeing a movie in the theater for me is that like I'm not at home, like I have nothing else to do, and there's nothing else like vying for my attention, and that helps a lot. But Yeah, like, I don't know, when there's like a waiter or whatever, like I'm watching the waiter and thinking about the waiter, and like that's all I'm really thinking about. Like I have to constantly sort of refocus my attention and be like, oh, right, the movie. And then like when I do that too, I'm like constantly sort of evaluating and thinking like, I guess I'm really not that invested
in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I get where it's not going to be the thing that will save movie theaters, but I think those will stick around. Like those have an audience.
Like that kind of thing is what theaters might turn into.
I think that kind of theater will exist. I think what I find is missing, and where I actually think a lot of movie theaters go wrong, as weird as it sounds, is like the art house theater, I think, is the thing that's already died.
Yeah.
But it also died in part because, like, it wasn't willing, people were not really willing to put up with, like, shitty theater experience.
Yeah.
And that, like, the art house theater got by because it's like, it was usually a cheap ticket, but it was also like you're going to be sitting on like an uncomfortable chair. It might not have snacks.
Yeah.
And the sound system's not going to be great.
Right.
But most of why you're there is it's like there's no other way to see this thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now that kind of is, you get the Criterion channel. You can stream it on your phone for $100 for the year.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, back in the day, it was sort of like, well, if you would go to the city to see a movie in a art house theater because that was the only way to see it. And like even in the Blockbuster days, you're like, well, they might not have fucking basket case here,
right?
And so I'm gonna go see it because I heard about this fucking weird movie.
Like our Blockbuster won't have a copy of Eraserhead, so
yeah,
I have to go see Eraserhead when it's being shown.
Okay,
or else there's just no way to do that. Whereas now, like since almost everything is accessible with the right streaming service, and even if you have like just Amazon Prime or like a digital thing set up there, you can usually get access to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think anything's accessible, especially if you're willing to pay $4.
Yeah,
you can have anything, and like, yeah, I suppose that is a problem for movie theaters for sure. And I think you're right. Like, it was a way to get things. It's like probably parallel in like the book world, right? Is sort of like, well, you would go to like a cool bookstore and they would have things there that you've been looking for that you hadn't seen before.
You're like, you find something that you didn't even know you were looking for.
Well, or like I would have a lot, like you would go to a big comic book store like in Denver, because they would have trade paperbacks that I'd been wanting to read forever, but they didn't have them
in your local
anywhere.
Comic store.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, there was a cachet to that. I kind of wonder what you think about, because I guess, you know, one of my toxic traits is that I'm like, I think I could make an art house theater work. My 2/3.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could make an art house theater work, and I think I could make a coffee shop / and or bar work. And I put those a little bit in the
same category.
Yeah. But I kind of wonder if one of the ways that it could work is like programming. And so what you do is you set it up so that because the thing that the problem of the multiplex is like back in the day, that was a thing because people would just go to the movies, right? You would fucking go and just see something like it. You didn't necessarily know even what you were going to.
I have found that people still do that.
Yeah.
Which I find like it's strange to me, but it is people who are both very old.
Yep.
They're just like, we're just going to see whatever. And it's also people with kids.
Yeah.
Like they're like, something's going to be playing for kids. I just want whatever like kid thing is here.
Well, I think that you've also currently got you live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
So some days it'll literally be 110 degrees, and just being somewhere dark and not hot is probably a not insignificant appeal.
It's a thing where you can be dark. It's, it's cool. You get to sit in someone else. Like a lot of people have I want to sit in someone else's air conditioning for a while.
Sure. Because you don't want to pay to keep your house at a, uncomfortable 85 and you're like, I
could sit in my house at the uncomfortable 85 degrees from 3 to like 6 or 7 p.m. because that's when our power, our sort of like our
your surge pricing or whatever they call that shit.
The on hours basically for power.
Yeah.
And it's like, or I could just go to the movies and then I don't have to endure the heat.
Well, in the movie, air conditioning is that like indulgent, delicious air conditioning.
Right.
It's like too cold.
Where it's too cold and you're like, oh, I should have brought a sweater.
Exactly. I was about to say, like, I don't know, but I would bet living in Phoenix, there's this feeling, somewhere in July or August where you're like, I want to have to wear a goddamn sweater.
I have times where I wonder, like, I actually think to myself, will I forget what it feels like to be cold?
Yeah. Will I ever be cold again?
Yes. Like, I kind of have will I remember what that's like?
Right.
Can I, and it's sort of also the like, okay, I think I can remember what it's like, but can I capture that?
Right.
And how? I mean, I found like using some of the cold plunges actually is the best way to do that. Don't really recommend it for like health recovery workout benefits. Maybe that's a Pete's pumpkin patch exploration.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, because I went to one person, like one physical therapist, he's like, yeah, it's not great for stuff. But I was like, well, I go because it makes me feel not hot anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, since you're kind of going for, I want to feel not hot.
Yeah. That's probably achievable.
He's like, yeah, that's exactly what it's going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense to me as a use of the cold. Yeah, I'm not a big believer in the cold plunge just because as far as I can tell, there's no actual evidence that does anything. I'm suspicious it's probably like a lot of fitness, especially fitness influencer things, which in my opinion are often based on it feels like you're doing something.
I think there's something because I went to a physical therapist who did recommend like contrast baths for a specific injury, which is not like you just put it a cold plunge, but it's like cold and then you alternate with hot and then you go back to cold and you go back to hot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more for like injury recovery, but I think stuff like that, like kind of like you said, the fitness influencer thing is the kind of thing that makes some sense if you are a pro athlete looking for small advantages. That's what I feel like I encounter a lot online is like stuff that makes sense if you are a very high level athlete looking for absolutely every edge. It's sort of the like, I need to take off the 0.01 seconds in my mile time.
Sure.
Type of edge as opposed to like I want to take like 10 minutes off my mile time. It's like, well,
yeah,
a cold plunge is not going to help you do that.
It's a little bit like a lot of what you'll see on the running subreddit. And it's somebody who is trying to, dial in their zone 2 training perfectly or whatever. And then they're like, well, I ran a 42-minute 5K and I'm trying to get down to 35. And no shade on that or anything. But you're just like, I mean, probably what you just need to do is get out there and do some more jogging.
There's a point where like, one of the climbing subreddits that is like that is usually the advice kind of comes down to, well, you just probably need to climb more often.
Yeah, you probably need more practice.
It's like there's not really at some point there's not really another way, or like, I think it's because I find this a lot of people look for hacks.
Yeah.
And, like they're looking for a hack for something like, how can I do this more? Sometimes you have the idea of I do this more optimally, but usually they're trying to say, how can I do it faster and cheaper and less effort? And I'm like, well, you can't.
Yeah, I do think optimization is something that people get really obsessed with in fitness because they feel like, and I understand because they feel like if they're not doing it in the optimal way, that they're, wasting time or energy, right? Like, because they're like, well, I could be getting this same thing from doing less if I optimize. But I think it's like people spend so much time and energy trying to optimize that I'm like, you're probably just better off not worrying about it so much.
Since we're going to the airport, this reminds me of an early experience I had with friend of the show, Wilma. And I think it gets to your point.
Okay.
Where like we were booking tickets to come out to Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And at the time I was like, I'll just book Southwest. They're usually the cheapest. Just,
Oh, yeah.
do it. Don't think about it.
Yeah.
And she was like trying to find like an optimal ticket at an optimal price.
Yep.
Like trying to say like, I can find something that's a little cheaper.
Right.
And I think like once or twice when she's done that, she did find something that was a little cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
But other times it was like about the same.
Right.
It's kind of like it's safe. Or sometimes it was like, no, it turned out Southwest was just cheaper. But it was kind of a like, okay, but you spent like 40 minutes trying to save, like if you spend 40 minutes to save like $200, you're like, okay, it might have been worth it. But if you're spending 40 minutes and you're saving $10, you're like, well,
Well, or even like, let's say you're both coming out here, but then you end up on different flights.
Yes.
And then you've saved $40, but I'm like, all right, but now I got to make 2 trips to the airport.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, so I mean, you saved $40, but like,
But once you've cost like, 3 hours of time plus, gas and everything else.
Like, yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, there are certain things, certainly like, if you're taking a big international flight or something,
right?
It's like, yep, explore the options, you know what I mean? Weigh the different prices, check the different airlines and try and figure out like which days are the best days to buy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then, when you're looking at a flight from there to here, which I'm guessing are usually in the $200-ish range, it's like, well, how much do you think you could save at the most? 50 maybe? If you got extremely lucky.
Is that the range of flights to here can be between, you can get $100 price swing.
Yeah.
But it's less on like the day or the airline and much more at the time you go.
Yeah, right.
Where it's like, oh, you could probably save $75 if you leave at 6 a.m. both times.
Yep.
Which I'm like, well, leaving at 6 a.m. from Phoenix for us is not terrible because like we're 15 minutes away from the airport.
Right.
But leaving at 6 a.m. from Greeley is
it's horrible because you're like, once you start doing the math and you're like, okay, I need to be in the car at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, that sucks. Like that absolutely sucks. Yeah. No, I do that. I do that same kind of math with Boonmaster Flex sometimes because she's like, she's thriftier than I am.
Sure.
I wouldn't say that I'm like a huge waster of money, but I would also say that like for me, I think about these things in terms of like, I'm a responsible adult and I do responsible things with money. And I feel like I do that in order to make decisions like I'm going to take a 10 a.m. flight instead of an 8 a.m. flight.
You're like, I can take the 10 a.m. flight and be like cognizant. And then when I get somewhere, I can, figure things out and make better choices.
Well, and I'm like, I know when I select the 8 a.m. flight, I know when I'm going to regret it. And it's the night before when I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I fell asleep instantaneously when I go up to bed, I'll have 5.5 hours of sleep. And I'm like, I could have, and, I think to myself, like, would I pay $70 to have a better night's sleep and to be less stressed out? And I'm like, that's probably a good use of money for me.
It's a thing that like, 10 a.m. flight Ian will not go to the airport bar. But 6 a.m. flight Ian thinks, fuck it. Everything's terrible.
Yeah, everything is awful. Well, if I catch a flight super early in the morning, I'm like, well, I'm drinking that airport coffee.
Right.
I'm like doing these things because, I'm going to be miserable and do anything I possibly can once I arrive to reduce the misery. And that's going to make it worse.
That anything, normally with airport rules, you kind of have I'm not going to read the great classic book. I'm going to just read I'm going to read yet another Warhammer 40K book.
Right. That's a good book to read on a traveling day.
But at the same time, it's, but then 6 a.m. is like the airport rules of airport rules.
Yeah.
Where you're like, where am I, how do I feel? Bad.
Yeah.
What am I going to do to shift that? Anything I can.
Yeah. What am I going to read? I'm never reading again.
Reading is
taking
terrible.
A protest right now against ever reading because why bother?
And it just gets to that point. And so, but yeah, I can't remember how we got into that, but I think it was that like small amount of optimization. I don't know, with fitness, right? Where there's an idea of like, I kind of get the idea of wanting to optimize because some people hate exercise.
Yeah.
Like they just hate it. But that's also where if someone's like, I'm trying to optimize, not because I want to get better at running, but I want to get the fitness benefits while doing as little as possible.
Yeah.
But those are also the people who are not going on the running subreddit. Like, I fucking hate running. How can I do less of it?
Well, and like, I think the thing is like optimizing, it's like, do it to the point that it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're spending, hours on the computer trying to like create the perfect running schedule for yourself or whatever, when I'm like, I don't know, man, I would just do a couch to 5K. And like, if you hate it, you hate it. But like,
if you hate it, then maybe running is just not for you.
Yeah, like there's some optimizing you can do, I think, that makes life better. But then there's an amount of optimizing that I'm like, well, I think now we're optimizing is the activity. And that's for some people, and it's not for me.
Like some people enjoy the I've made this thing perfect, or like if people have a really challenging goal to hit.
Yeah.
Again, it kind of comes to the advice makes sense if you are an elite level athlete and you've eliminated all of the easy gains.
Yeah.
You know.
Let me put it like this: like, Poonmaster Flex will look at earrings on Etsy, and she'll have 25 tabs open on her computer of earrings, and then she discovered, like, because I was like, why don't you just fucking buy them? They're like $10. And she's like, well, if you put them in your cart and then leave them there and don't check out, sometimes you'll get a coupon from the seller. You know what I mean? It'll send you like a 10% off coupon. And then I'm like, all right, so then you saved $1. And like for her, that works because she'll like do that and she'll get the coupon and do that and whatever. For me, I'm like, my barriers to most things in life are my annoyance and hassle. And I'm like, I'll never go back. Like, I just need to put it in the thing and just be done with this because I don't want to think about it anymore. And I would pay $1 to do that. You know what I mean?
I think it's part of it is that in Poonmaster Flex's case, that I think that's part of the game.
Yes,
like it's
absolutely.
part of the thing. It's not just like get the earrings. It's like I want to get the earrings for the lowest price I can, and that's like part of the enjoyment is like I'm trying to like beat the system in a way.
100%. And like I understand, and that's what I mean. Like optimizing is the activity. It's like when she saves a very tiny amount of money by putting in a amount of effort on a pair of earrings. It's because the saving the money is the activity. It's not about the dollar. It's not like she's like, now I can take that $1 and do XYZ with it. It's about like, that's right. That's the game. And that for me, that's like not
the $1's going to the kitty fund.
Yeah, I'm like, what's the $1 for? And she's like, that's not even. If I were to ask her, what are you going to do with the $1 you saved? She'd be like, what do you mean? Like, that's not.
I got the $1.
Yeah, she's like, I just have it.
And in some ways, it's like the gambler who doesn't actually want to win. Like they just kind of, or like they want to win, but they don't care about the money very much.
Yeah, right. Like some guy who won a huge poker tournament, and then you're like, what are you going to do with the money? And he's like, honestly, this is the first time I've thought about that.
And I was like,
I don't actually know.
Guess, like get some dinner or something, get some chicken McNuggets.
You're like, all right then. I guess you're here for the love of the game.
Right.
Okay, you brought up today, but in the past as well, like Warhammer. And you wrote I'll describe this and then you can fix it.
Sure.
A game book guide?
Yeah, like a tabletop playing guide.
Yeah, for a game called Kadita?
So it's called Stillfleet, but the book is called Kadita. Yeah.
Okay. Like, okay, this is like Stillfleet is a gaming system.
Yes.
And then Kadita is sort of like a flavor of that system.
It's kind of like if you had like, you could get like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Everyone understands Dungeons and Dragons. Yes. Right? And so normally you'd get like a Dungeons and Dragons core rule book. And this has like what you do to play the Dungeons and Dragons. Sometimes you can buy other books that have like a kind of like pre-packaged quest in it, or like a pre-packaged theme of stuff in it.
Okay.
That says, for example, you'd have like, I want to have like Dungeons and Dragons Wizards of Water or something like that, right? And it's going to have like, here's a bunch of extra characters and, a bunch of like water creatures and like maybe a little quest that you can kind of like get your players through.
So maybe if I could like make an analogy,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit like you're playing Super Mario 3.
Yeah.
And, you've got your basic mechanics of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can go to like World 6 and you're in an ice world and things are a little different.
Yes.
And it provides some different challenges or different opportunities. But some of the core stuff is still the same.
Yeah, the core stuff is still, that's a good analogy of like, you'll say, all right, I'm going to go to this world where there's a different, like, it is like saying you're going to have some different theming. It's not in the core, like, because like a core rule book is supposed to give you the overall, like, vibe of a game.
Right. How the fuck does this work?
How the fuck does this work?
What do I do?
What do I do? But then, like, it's not going to give you stuff like, to use a different game system, like Shadowrun has a thing because it always takes place in a city. And usually it takes place in like Seattle or New York City.
Oh, okay.
They kind of assume like an American audience, big cities that you would have.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll write like other books that says like, well, what if you wanted to do something in Hong Kong or Paris or Milwaukee? Yes, you could say like, this is what this is kind of a guide for this city.
Okay.
Right, like your people you would encounter or stuff that you might encounter or like. Yeah, there could be something in the core rule book that's like, it doesn't come up very often, but is like really important here. Then that's kind of what it's like.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I wrote.
So you wrote one of the sort of flavors of this system.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's intense. Like it's a fucking book.
Yes.
It's not like I feel like when I describe it as flavor, it's like, I'm saying, well, someone invented ice cream, and Ian was like, what if we put gummy bears in it? But it's definitely a lot more involved than that.
It's a bit of like, sometimes people will do something that's a lot smaller than what I did. Like they'll say, okay, we want something that has like a desert adventure.
Yeah.
And that's like a bit smaller. Whereas mine is like, okay, but it's like a whole little like world that you're in this larger world.
Yeah, there's like characters. And they have
backstories and things like that. It's supposed to be something you could use to play a lot more in depth.
Okay.
It's sort of meant to be like it's sort of you like ice. It's kind of the like, okay, you like ice cream where you buy the core rule book.
Yeah.
Right. This is going to be the kind of thing that you can build on, make your own thing. But what if you want like the really weird ice cream? Right?
Yeah.
But it's also something you're not going to want to like put in the effort to make yourself. Like you say, like, I want like ice cream, but I want creme brulee all over.
Well, because I guess tabletop gaming, right? There's probably less a division than there is in like traditional gaming. But like there are people who don't necessarily want to make the thing. They want to play the thing, right? And so like a book like yours, I'm guessing what that does is if you're like a whatever you would call a dungeon master, you don't have to create everything from scratch. And like you don't have to.
It does kind of two things. Like the first thing is what you described. Like you don't have to face like the blank sheet and create it all from the beginning. It also gives like the players an opportunity to be like, all right, because someone could just like a GM could just create this world. And they set all these like crazy rules that they have in their head. But then the players don't know those crazy rules.
Right. Okay.
And so then you'd have to either create a book for them, which is what we did, or you just have to be like, well, it's. No, you don't really get to add any new stuff. Like everything just is like, what if we played Dungeons and Dragons, but we wore different hats?
Right.
And it's like, well, that's not going to be really, for players looking for something new or different, it's not enough. So it kind of gives the players a chance to say like, we're in this world and we're playing by these agreed upon set of rules for a game. So you're not like trying to negotiate. Like you meet this character. What are they like? What is their backstory?
Yeah.
Do they get along with this person or that person? Like, no, this is all settled already.
Okay.
You get sort of you can just look it up as opposed to like having to debate those questions.
I see. That makes sense because then otherwise the entire gameplay, right, would just consist of arguing over how this is, like what the world is.
It's trying to reduce those arguments. You can never eliminate those arguments, but you're trying to be like, here's a thing we can all point to and say, like, it is this way.
Right.
It is canon for what you might say. It's like, this is how it works.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
But you had a Warhammer question.
Well, I guess it was...
which is different than D&D in a lot of ways as a sort of a game system and also like as a bit of lore.
Mm-hmm.
And that like part of it is like the way I experience Warhammer 40,000 is entirely through the books.
Okay.
And that like you can...
When you say the books, you
like
mean
the
novels.
The novels,
okay.
Yeah. And like I have watched people play the game and it's in the same way where I think some people enjoy watching like professional football of like, I can enjoy people watching a version of this,
mm-hmm.
but it's the condensed 40 minutes of highlights of a 3-hour game.
Okay.
Not wanting to watch the 3-hour game.
Yeah.
And I can see how that's enjoyable, but also I have no desire to play the game. Like, absolutely not.
Okay, so you are a fan of Warhammer as far as the novels or extended universe and so on,
right.
But not interested in actually playing the game itself.
The tabletop game is very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It is got a lot of rules in it. And
okay, this joke must have been made a billion times within that community, but I'm not in it.
Uh-huh.
Do people say it's called Warhammer 40K because that's how much money you spend on it?
Yes.
That's got to be the number one joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first joke everybody makes about it. The easiest dumb joke.
The worst thing is that I was talking with somebody on a Discord I'm a part of, and he pointed out that there is a single model, like a single one model you can buy that is like $5,000.
That's insane.
It's like one thing, and it is like $5,000. Because someone was joking about like, what would you do if you just got like a $5,000 bonus? And they're like, I guess I'd buy this. I just got $5,000 for doing nothing.
Now, okay. My understanding of like magic cards, for example, is there are like cards that are worth a bunch of money because they're very rare.
Yes.
Are these also cards, like, do these valuable cards also tend to be like really useful in terms of gameplay? Or does that not have anything to do with it?
Now, some of them are, but the thing is like, usually what happens to the value of a card is that like there's going to be a card that people don't really know how to use or don't really know what it does or like just haven't figured something out with it yet. And it's worthless.
Okay.
Basically worthless. It's not very common, but like it's not very valuable because nobody wants it.
Right.
Then what happens is somebody figures out the right combination to make this card brutal, like just almost game winning.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, all right, we're going to use, now everyone wants this card because like now it's a way to like you can almost win the game with it.
Right.
But then like in sort of tournament play, it gets banned.
Right. Okay.
Because of course, like the game, someone's like, I found this totally broken thing. And people are like, that's okay. Competitive play, you cannot do that.
Okay.
It is something you simply cannot do.
Because they cut it out because it's like makes it not interesting.
It makes it like not fun because basically everyone is trying to figure out like, can I draw? You'd have games that like people have the same deck and they're both just trying to see who's going to draw that combo of cards first.
And it just becomes pure luck of the draw.
Draw. Nobody has fun.
Okay.
And then it becomes about like, can you acquire these particularly broken cards so they get banned? And then the card value goes way, way down.
Okay.
So it's kind of like...
It's a very roller coaster.
Yeah, there's a lot of roller coaster. Whereas like, I've seen with Warhammer figurines, they're just always expensive.
Okay.
But they get like more and less expensive. But usually not less expensive. Like they get less expensive if they're new. But like if eventually over time, like they just stop making stuff. So then it gets more expensive.
I see. So it's a scarcity. But so like a $5,000 Warhammer figure, is that like a great figure to have?
That is a figure you actually cannot play with. Like you legally cannot.
Of course.
In a standard game, you have to make up your own game to play it.
Right.
Because basically, I'll try to explain the tabletop mechanics as briefly as I can. But basically, imagine every little dude is worth a certain number of points.
Okay.
Like maybe if you have like a tank, it's worth like 300 points. Or if you have a really powerful character, it's like 300 points.
Uh-huh.
And then like if you just have like a random dude, the dude is going to like your random squad of dudes is going to be worth like 20.
Okay.
And so most games standard are like 2,000 points.
Okay.
To play like the full version of it. So you have 2,000 points. Someone else has 2,000 points.
Uh-huh.
I think this like $5,000 character is like 10,000 points.
So it
has like enough guns and hit points and stuff on it that in terms of how it relates, the tabletop to lore part doesn't ever work.
Right.
But this is supposed to be a figure that represents like a giant mech that is roughly the size of a city.
Okay. So it exceeds the amount of points that you're allowed to.
It would be like, what if
the salary cap?
It's sort of like if you were decided, like you're saying, how many like random dudes?
Yeah.
Right, just random dudes you get around who said, like, I'm going to fight the city of Denver, but it has guns and missiles.
And it's like sentient and trying to kill me.
It is piloted. It's not sentient.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Yeah, it's piloted and trying to kill, maybe not you specifically, but like try to like clear a path.
I am opposed to it.
Right. Your job is you are somehow opposed to it.
How would I even begin to go
how
about
would you
that?
begin to do it? And in the scale of Warhammer 40,000, it's like, well, what if I threw 8 million dudes at it?
Okay, yeah.
But obviously you can't do that in a tabletop game. But like usually in the novels, the books, that's usually the answer is like, what if I threw a lot of dudes at it?
Just like put them in the grinder and hope
like,
for the best.
You know, where they're talking and things where the numbers are all made up, where there's like, well, we have like 9,000 tanks.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's a lot of tanks. It's like, is that enough? No.
I see how a thing like this is like appealing as a novel as opposed to a game.
Right.
Because like that's a premise that's like straight out of an action movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, the city of Denver is coming for us. And you're like, I mean, playing against that as a game wouldn't be very fun because it would just be like,
well, did I pack my giant robot missile or not?
Yeah.
If I did, this game's over in 20 minutes. If I didn't, it's also over in 20 minutes.
But as a narrative, it's like, you're like, okay, well, I'm buckled in. Like, let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once looking up because I was like, maybe Warhammer is a thing I would like. And I tried to look up like, it seems like it has a problem in that a lot of fandoms do, which is if you ask a question like, hey, I'm thinking about Warhammer, like what would be a good book to pick up as a first one? And you'll get 150 different
There's
people.
So many books, and they're going to give you all like kind of. You can probably get some consolidated, like better answers than others.
Yeah.
But like, you're not going to get a good answer.
Yeah.
It's kind of like asking, like, if someone asked you, I want a Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
Where should I start reading Spider-Man?
Yeah, I guess, but I think I can ask them a couple questions like, what do you like about Spider-Man?
Right.
Or like, what do you like about comics? Or like, what kind of other comics have you enjoyed? And then I could probably tell them what would be. Although I guess that's probably the same with Warhammer, right? Like if someone knew enough about Warhammer and had those kind of reader's advisory skills.
Then there's also a thing with like any kind of nerd shit, but especially with Warhammer, which the more you know about Warhammer, the less you seem to know about actual people.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why I think a lot of the recommendations in that sphere are particularly bad, because it's like the people who know enough to have read all of this stuff, like to have read widely and broadly enough to, within this intellectual property universe.
Yeah.
To say, well, this is what I would recommend.
Yeah.
They're not going to know, they're not going to think about, what do you like as a person?
Right.
That's sometimes a question that does not occur.
Well, I feel it's a little cruel. Comic books are equally guilty of this, right? Because if someone asked, what's a good Spider-Man to start with? Some fucking asshole is going to be like, Amazing Fantasy 15. Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were the kings, and whatever. And I'm like, they're not bad. I like them, but I like them because I like that stuff a lot, and I like the sort of cheesiness of it.
You're willing to tolerate the like cheesiness and simplicity of this. It's not going to, that era of Spider-Man is not going to be very deep.
It's kind of like, I think most of us could say, hey, if someone said, what Batman movie should I start with? I think most of us would say like, probably Batman Begins.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's probably, if you've never experienced Batman before and you wanted to watch a Batman movie, that's probably the one to watch. And then like, if you like that, and then, you like go back to the 90s and watch those and whatever. And then it's like, you like that stuff. Then I would be like, the movie they made of the 1966 TV show is actually pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not recommend the 1969 or whatever.
You would not
movie.
Recommend Batman 69 movie if someone said, I want a Batman.
Yeah, like I
would be like,
that's probably not what they're thinking of, even though I think there's a lot to be gained from it. But it's like, and that's the same way I feel about comics. So it's a little how I felt like trying to discover like a good starting place for Warhammer was sort of like, it's sort of like if you ask Star Wars fandom where to start with those novels, and you're going to get all this shit that you're like, but there's going to be some nerd on there, right? Who's like, well, in order to understand what's happening in this timeline, you're going to have to read, plow through 15 Rogue Squadron books.
No, that's also a thing that's true about, as weird as it is, I think Warhammer 40K, if you don't know something, you're better off looking up a YouTube video or a podcast about it. Because if you go to the wiki, not usable. Like, absolutely, because the nerd shit is too comprehensive.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, now I'm more confused.
I didn't need this much information, and actually having this much information is a detriment.
Yeah, it is detrimental. Like sometimes it's honestly, you type in your question to the Google machine, and then you just hope someone like on Reddit has answered your question in a sensible way.
I mean, I have a deep love for this kind of nerdery.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like when you get into something like that and you start seeing like the wiki and you're like, this is unintelligible to me, even as someone with a light background in this. Right. I don't know. There's a place in my heart for that, but I do know exactly what you're talking about, which is like, it's a thing that attracts nerds, as does contributing to wikis. Now, so it's a perfect storm.
I would recommend for everybody who's thinking about this, don't actually go to any Warhammer stuff or Warhammer creators. There's a podcast called Guys, which is just about guys who are into stuff.
Okay.
And it's sort of like, it'll have like Weed Guys or Scott Adams Guys or this kind of guys.
Oh, interesting.
It just has Warhammer Guys.
Oh, okay. So do Warhammer Guys from the Guys podcast?
Yes, and that will also help with the confusion slightly.
All right.
Yeah.
That's where I'll start then.
All right.
I'll report back.
All right, we did it.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Let's talk about two time. Let's talk about bum one, yeah. Asking the questions that nobody could.